So, if I had 90 days to lose as much fat as possible, here is exactly what I would do. Follow all of these steps, and I guarantee you will lose the most amount of fat you've ever lost in your life. And I'm going to keep this straight to the point, no bullshit. So, pay attention and let's do this. Now, disclaimer. First off, I want you to understand this is completely relative to your starting point, and you getting insanely shredded and getting sub 10% and getting very vascular is highly contingent on where you are when you first started. If you are around 20-25% body fat, there's a high likelihood that that may not be the case. This doesn't mean you shouldn't start. You should be aiming to lose as much fat as possible. However, you may need a little bit of a different approach, and you may need to stay in the game for a bit longer. So you might not be able to go as intense as the people who really, really want to go and take it the next level. So you need to understand the same principles are there, and you will lose the same amount of fat. You just may not see it as well, depending on your starting point. So remember this, because the real results genuinely come at the final part. When you get to the point where you are kind of losing those last few kilos, that's when you're going to see the most amount of fat lost. And it's down to the spot reduction theory. You can't choose where you lose fat from. You just have to lose it from your frame. And in turn, you will lose fat from certain areas that you want to lose fat from. For example, if you're just wanting to remove it all from the midsection and get those abs and get nice and lean, we just need to get to the point where we're removing fat from the whole body, and eventually you will run out of places where you can lose fat from and your midsection will catch up. So remember that. But without further ado, we'll get straight into this and talk to you about step number 1. So item 1 doesn't work without this. We need to place ourselves in a calorie deficit, specifically a high protein and a high carb calorie deficit. I'm not going into why we shouldn't cut carbs. I made a video on that yesterday, so watch that if you are confused. But we want to basically keep carbs high and keep protein high. Now, expect to lose 1 to 2 kilogram instantly. And the reason why is because we're going to deplete our muscles with glycogen. As we drop our calories, we're going to have less carbohydrate, which means glycogen and water is going to leave the body through placing ourselves in a calorie deficit, which then brings me to point numero uno, which is basically place yourselves in deficit by taking your maintenance calories and removing 200 to 300. No more. Very, very small. And the way you simply estimate your maintenance calories is easy. Number 1, if you've got an Apple Watch, you can loosely track it over the last 90 days if you've been wearing that for a while and realize how much you've been burning on a daily basis. And that tells you how much you need to maintain your weight based on what you burn. If not, we can go to TDEE calculator and basically work that out. Once we have that, we then need to make sure that we're not going too low with our calories. So if your maintenance calories are 2,800, let's just say that's you, 2,800. I want you starting at 2,600. The trick is not to go too low here. And the reason why is, biggest mistake, it's actually laughable because I did it and now I see people doing it. People sometimes just tell me they know exactly what they're doing, they don't need any help. But I say, how many calories are you on out of interest when you first start the cut? And they're on 2,000 already. And I go, all right, good luck to you. And the reason why is because if you start on 2,000 calories, your body is designed to adapt. So as a result, over time, it is going to adapt. These headphones are divided. As a result, they are going to adapt. And what happens is, eventually at 2,000 calories in 2 to 3 weeks, you will not lose any weight. So what do you need to do? You need to decrease your calories even further. And then where do you go from that? 1,800? 1,600? 1,500? Now we're in a situation, right, where muscle growth is not going to be happening. Muscle retention is likely out the window. And the reason why, because we don't have enough calories to actually fuel performance and training performance. And everything else goes in the bin. So you need to keep your calories high. And the goal is to lose as much weight as possible with calories at the highest they possibly can be. Leads me on to my next point. Keeping protein nice and high for muscle maintenance and satiation. Protein keeps you full. So if you're eating a very high protein diet, you're not going to have hunger as much, which is going to stop you craving and stop you overeating. You also need it to maintain muscle. And there's also evidence to suggest that by consuming protein, you actually burn more calories through the digestion of protein. So the thermogenics suggests that for every gram of protein you consume, 25% of it gets burnt in the digestion process. I'm not entirely sure, but look into it. So keeping protein high is very, very important. Now, we also want to keep carbs high for training performance. Reason why is because your muscles are vulnerable when we're in a cut, and we don't want to be losing muscle because that just negates everything. We're trying to lose fat. We're not trying to lose muscle. We're trying to lose fat specifically. Therefore, we need to be training hard. We need to be pushing to failure and making sure that at bare minimum, we are retaining muscle and potentially growing muscle in whatever phase we are in. Now, there are a few phases where you can grow muscle in a deficit. This is where you are retraining. This is basically where you haven't trained for a while and then you come back into the gym. basically you can grow muscle very quickly. And if you're a newcomer to the gym, you're still in a newbie gains period where if your food's in a sensible spot, which it will be if you follow tip number 1, you can still gain a lot of size. And that's kind of what I'd recommend to anyone first starting as well, because you can just improve your body composition and gain muscle at the same time. So really, really useful. Not to mention, if you have more carbs in and you can therefore train harder, what does that mean? If you can train harder, you burn more calories. So it's actually 2 birds, 1 stone. So make sure you're doing that. Another really key point, organize calories around training days and non-training days. So on a day where you are training, let's say legs or upper body or pull, whatever it is, you're going to burn more calories. So you're going to need more carbohydrates to actually fuel those sessions. Now, we don't want to keep our calories the same 7 days in a row, because on the rest days, we're going to be burning less calories. So we can reduce our calories as a result. What I typically would do if I'm eating 2,600 on a training day is remove 300 calories for my rest day and have 2,300. And I would remove those calories not from protein, but from carbohydrate. The reason why, I don't need as much glycogen on those days because I'm only doing my cardio likely. And that means we can make up a difference by adding more fats. So that's where I'd look to have salmon or more eggs or some avocado on that day and leave the majority of the carbohydrates for the training days, if that makes sense. And finally, really important one, and this comes down to who you are, how serious you are, and habits, but I want to stress this one. I want you to take this home. Everything has to be accurate. Otherwise, you're just lying to yourself. You're not in a deficit. You think you're in a deficit and you will complain when things are not going well, but in reality, you didn't go the full way. So I want to just stress the importance of being accurate, having a scale. If you don't have a food scale, you're not in a deficit, end of. And making sure that we're not cutting corners. So when we have protein oats in the morning, we don't put milk in it. When we cook our steak, we don't have olive oil. Sorry, lads. We're back. When we have our coffees, when we have our oats, we don't add milk. Why? That's just extra calories. We're wanting to consume all of our foods to make sure hunger's in a good spot. We don't add extra calories through olive oil when we can be using Frylight 0-calorie spray. Otherwise, you've got to be tracking the olive oil, which is just silly. So don't be doing that. You need to be careful with sauces. Don't take the piss on that. They are calories. And also just being very, very aware of what it is you're eating. Every single calorie counts. Make sure you're actually tracking them. You do all of that, you've got nutrition down to the letter. After that, step number 2. We now want to enlarge in a deficit. So we need to add in cardio and steps to make sure we're doing so. So first off, what we want to do is begin with 6 days of cardio at 25 minutes. And we want to aim for the 60 to 73% range of your max heart rate. This is where the majority of fat burning is done, scientifically speaking. So if you're a 20-year-old, the way you calculate this is taking your max heart rate, which is 220, minus your age. 220 minus your age equals your max heart rate. So if you're a 20-year-old individual, your maximum heart rate will be around 200. And let's just say we're aiming for 70%. You're aiming for around 140 BPM. Therefore, whatever form of cardio you choose to do, I would highly recommend the Stairmaster. You have to make sure that you choose a level, you choose a setting or whatever it is, and you check on the pulse reader or you check on your Apple Watch or Whoop device that you are working in the 140 BPM range. Otherwise, your cardio will not be efficient and you will have to do it for longer and you're just not working hard enough. If you're not sweating, that's an example right there. Big mistake people make is just not working hard enough, and the only way you can track it, because calories on the screen are also bollocks, is making sure that we're actually working at a certain BPM range. So if you're 20 years old, aim for 140. If you're 19, if you're 18, if you're 24, 25, use that formula and make sure you're doing that. Make sure our cardio is accurate and don't skip it. Build the habit. If you're going to lose as much fat as possible, when I say do 6 days of 25, you do it you make it a habit. And you do it after your sessions, regardless if you're tired, because this is where the majority of fat loss will come from. You're enlarging in your deficit. You're aiming to burn around 300 to 500 calories here. And that's going to get you to where you want to be, because on a daily basis, that will add up. And eventually it becomes easy. I've done 1 month of cardio every single day. I've never missed a day. Even when I'm hungover, I went out the other week. I still did it. And it's just like, it needs to become a habit. And it just needs to become, it's how you get the best results. So until you're doing that, you're not going to be in a good spot. So make sure instantly start at 6 by 25 minutes. And again, don't go crazy with the cardio. Don't jump the gun and go 7 by 1 hour. That's just stupid. Start off 6 days at 25 minutes. The reason I want you starting at 6 days is because doing the hard thing first is going to allow you to actually progress quicker, if that makes sense. If I start someone on 3 or 4, they're going to think 6 is such a chore. But if we raise their standards from the get-go and we say, right, no, you're in a gym 6 days a week doing cardio, it becomes very easy to just level that up a little bit more. Okay, now we've got to do 1 extra day, 7. But if we went from 3 to 7, you see where I'm getting at. Now, in terms of cardio, I'd recommend Stairmaster because I just find that it's the most low intensity one, in my opinion, to get to the goal. I feel like incline walking, in order to hit the same BPM range, you have to be walking so fast. And also I want to be on my phone a little bit, doing stuff, doing a bit of work. I can't be walking fast and doing that, so fuck the incline walk. I'm a Stairmaster man. And then maybe the bike, but again, bike hurts. I love Stairmaster. So that's what I'd recommend there. And then 10,000 steps on top of this. Now, this needs to be accurate, and you need to make sure that when we're doing 10,000 steps, we're not including anything done from cardio. So if you're doing Stairmaster or incline walk, those steps are extra. And it's very, very easy. You just see what you've done on the machine and add that to your total, or you work out how many steps you did for the day prior to jumping on that machine, and then add them on again. Don't cheat, because otherwise your cardio is just negligible. Remember that. And then finally, I would aim to lift 5 times per week as opposed to 3 to 4. Reason why is those extra sessions, they're not potentially going to be gaining you loads of muscle, but they're going to be making sure you're burning more calories. And the way you do that is by training to pure failure. Now, you're not going to be gaining a shit ton of muscle, but this is a really good way to develop your skills in terms of lifting, get all your principles in the right place, so when you do go into a gaining phase, you know actually how to gain muscle, and also just to burn as many calories as possible. The harder you train, the more calories you're going to burn. Now you are in a true deficit. No bullshit, everything is accurate as long as you follow those 2 things. We can now move on to step 3. So how do we monitor progress? So what I like to do is track weight daily. Fasted first thing in the morning, I have a couple of coffees, and then I go to the toilet, and then I weigh myself. Reason why? That's your most accurate weight, because if you ate something the night before, it will still be in your stomach. That's the way we can actually have a weight reading which we can trust every single day and go with. I would then track it on a daily basis with notes and or an app. There's apps out there, 100%. So use them. I've got my own one, but if you want to use another app, they're on the App Store. If you want to use mine, reach out. Now, essentially, you want to be seeing your weight trending downwards, and you want to be seeing weekly averages, basically aiming for you to drop 0.6 to 1 kilo per week. That's around 1 to 2 pounds if you're in America. That's what you're aiming for. And once we have the tracking situation in place, we can then look at monitoring and manipulating certain parts of our diet and cardio to make sure we're not plateauing and ensuring progress. Another thing is take progress pictures weekly. You want to be motivated and you want to see what's happening. So take one from the front, one from the back, one from the side. Never do a mirror selfie. Just do one with a timer, with your hands behind your side. And that's going to be the best way to do things. I'm literally teaching you how to coach yourself here. So take notes, this is important. Now, number 4, diet cardio manipulation. So once we've got our tracking principles in place, once we've got our initial diet and our initial training expenditure plan sorted, how do we actually make sure we can progress it? Because if, we're not going to just consistently lose fat every single week. We will plateau. And how do we make sure that's not the case? So we keep our calories nice and high, as we spoke about. And what we try and do is we keep calories as high as possible. So we aim to increase cardio first. And then we do food and vice versa. And we're aiming for that 0.6 to 1 kg coming off every single week. Now, rule number 1, I've stressed it so many times. Do not drop your calories too low. And rule number 2 is follow rule number 1. Don't drop your calories too low. You need to manage hunger. It's the most important thing, and it's your brain tricking you. So if you drop them too low quickly, you're going to fuck up. It's easier to do more cardio than it is to starve yourself. And when it gets to the tail end, when you get a month or 2 in, trust me, you're going to be very thankful you listened to me on that one. We want food as high as possible. So what I would recommend is, on that first week, we're seeing weight come off. Amazing. We always make progress every single week, and the reason why is because we want to prevent a plateau happening in advance. We don't want to wait for something to plateau and then do something about it. We want to preempt it. So if you're losing a decent amount of weight and then halfway through the next week you're seeing slowing down a little bit, that's when we do the next step. So what I'd recommend, if we're on 6 by 25 minutes of cardio, we then go to 6 by 30 minutes. Then the following week, we drop calories from 2.6 to around 2.4. Then what do? We up cardio again, 7 by 30 minutes now. Then we can drop calories from 2.4 to around 2.3. Then I would up cardio again, because we're at 2.3 on a training day and 2.1 on a non-training day. That's as low as I want it for now. Then 7 by 35 minutes, 7 by 40 minutes, 7 by 45 minutes, and then maybe one final drop of calories. And that should make sure that if you're doing that, if you think about that on a weekly basis over 12 weeks, you're going to consistently create adaptations to make sure your body is not stagnating and doing the same thing. That's how I would basically structure a progression scheme to make sure you keep losing as much fat as possible. But remember, you're just aiming for that. And if for whatever reason that slows down, you need to make sure that you are adapting as such. You also have to understand there is a degree of accuracy needed. So you need to be weighing yourself fasted because there's water retention, there's bloatedness that will completely dictate what you do. So you need to make sure everything is nice and accurate. Now, number 5. Now, how do we manage hunger? This is really, really key because this, again, dictates what you do. If we can control the behavior, if we control the mindset, then we can pretty much control how much fat we're going to lose. Remember, it's all about you. At the end of the day, I can tell you exactly what I do, but I can't stop you from putting the food in your mouth, and I can't get you on that fucking treadmill. So we have to think about hunger, especially when we're coaching people. And the way I like to do things is be realistic and, do what is possible. So I'm someone who's doing a cut right now. I understand this. And what I like to do is fast for the first 5 hours in the morning. I think any more is a bit mental. And your brain starts to just stop working. So I would say fast for 5 hours at a maximum. And I use black coffee. So what I like to do is I get up around 6 a.m. at the moment, and I'll have my first meal at 11. Any longer than 11 just kills me. But what I can do, right, 6 to 8, not hungry in the slightest. Then I'm having my coffees, and then that's suppressing my appetite. But then 10:30, it creeps in. And then 11, I break it. So first 5 hours, I use black coffee to my advantage to suppress my appetite. And then what I would do from the hours of 11 until I go to bed at around 10, I would space my 6 meals that I would create over every 2 to 3 hours. So I would not be eating meals in quick successions. Meal timing is very, very important, every 2 to 3 hours. And if I'm hungry between meals, then so be it, because we have to think long term. And I would use clever foods, because remember, if we look at calories and actual glycemic index, and we look at, how can we keep ourselves full? Well, a Snickers bar is 200 calories, right? But then you can look at a whole packet of, half packet of rice, and that's also 200 calories. Or you can look at fruit or veg, and you realise that there's things that we can be eating that will keep us nice and full, and those are what we should be aiming for, if that makes sense. So don't get your calories from silly things. Create 6 meals that are going to allow you to consume as much food as possible while hitting your goals. You need to be clever with them. I'll give you a few. Sweet potatoes. Potatoes, you can have so much potato, but it really, really does not have many calories. Same with veg. Same with fruit. I go heavy on the fruit and veg, and I have it with every single meal, which is improving my health from an antioxidant point of view and vitamins, etc. But also, it's keeping me satiated, which is the most important thing. So remember that. And then also, carbs pre and post workout for glycogen. You're going to be hungriest at the times you're training, so it's important that we're making sure that we're loading up our glycogen stores with carbohydrate pre-workout and post-workout. Very important post-workout for muscle growth, as I spoke about in the last video about cutting carbs. And then the final tips that no one ever will tell you, but I will because I'm a legend. Coke Zero. Coke Zero fucking does the trick. It really, really does help. Just 0 calories, fills you up a little bit, quenches your appetite. Snus. I like to keep it nice and low. I'm on a 2 dot here. But this stuff does suppress your appetite and goes a treat with a little morning coffee. So that's really good for you. And that's not going to negate any of the cardio effects the cardio improvements you're working on through vaping or smoking. So I'm not advocating for nicotine, but if you are going to have nicotine, do snus. And then vegetables and fruit, because they literally have little to no calories, which is the most important thing. And that's pretty much everything you need to lose as much fat as possible. You do all of that. You follow that deficit. You follow that cardio and step structure. You start tracking your progress, as I've explained. You start manipulating it contingent on the amount of progress you're making. You manage your hunger levels as such. And the final few steps, you remove alcohol. You just fuck it off, because when you take this seriously, you haven't got any time for it. Personally, I've got no interest in alcohol at the moment. I say that. I did go out last week, but it was a planned birthday and it was unavoidable. Now I really don't care. The reason why is because I'm just hungry. Everything calorie I consume, I want it to be food. I'm not consuming any liquid calories. I'm just hungry. And I don't care. I'm focused on my business. I'm focused on producing content every single day. I'm not interested. So you want to get far, just remove alcohol. And also, it bloats you for 3 days, so you just look shit for 3 days, and I don't want it. I want to look shredded every day. So fuck alcohol. Second, sleep well, cognitive function. Need I say more? Third, do everything by the book. Be accurate. Just like go 100%. You came to watch the video because you want to lose as much fat as possible. I'm going to tell you, you don't get there by being, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. All the way. If you ain't got a fucking food scale, buy one now. If you're not weighing yourself every day and you're not doing it the way I say, fasted, you're not going to get anywhere. Do everything by the book. And lastly, get a coach. The reason why is because doing stuff in the grey, doing stuff on your own isn't as fun. You're always second guessing yourself. But when you've got a coach in your corner, you know exactly what's going on. You've got a second pair of eyes. So if you're in a situation where you are serious and you are in a position to financially invest in yourself, I'm telling you, getting a coach is a game changer. I've had business coaches. I've got a fitness coach myself. Best advice ever. And I'm subtly plugging my coaching here because I'm an unbelievable coach. So if you do want a little bit of extra help, you know where to find me. Fill out the application below. But I would highly recommend getting one and following all my tips. If you don't want to do that, just follow my tips and see how far you get. Send me as many transformation pictures as possible because I genuinely think we can create some insane transformations from just this video. I'm going to release a challenge as well, which is going to be pretty cool. But I hope that was really useful. This is some advice I wish I fucking got told. So use it to your advantage. Take some notes and let's get shredded, lads. For the Americans, spring break coming up. You can do a lot in about a month. And for the lads in the UK, clock's going back next month. Spring is back in the mixer. We're at around 12 degrees today. That's t-shirt weather in the UK. So let's lock in, lads, and let's lose a bit of fat. And this is kind of my approach to doing so. So I hope that was useful. We're back again tomorrow. And that's everything. All the best. Catch you on the next one.